Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more pattern testing, and today we've got another combo that I'm really excited to see what kind of performance we can get. I have a feeling this is really going to give us a pretty nasty looking pattern. We've seen some fantastic results from these shells previously, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do through today's setup combo. But as for the shells we've got here today, I brought out some more of the Salt Creek triple threat shells. These ones are the 12 gauge, 3-inch, 2-ounce payload of TSS T-shot, moving about 1250 feet per second, and we have seen some very nasty results from these shells so far, and I really don't expect anything different from today's setup. So big thank you to Keith and the guys at Salt Creek for sending some of these over. I'm not paid to tell you guys anything about them, but these are a great shell that should give us some very nice results today. But as for the setup I've got to run them through today, I brought out the Mossberg 835 Ulti-Mag with its factory stock modified choke. It measures out right at a 742 constriction. If you don't know, these 835s are overbored to a 10 gauge bore size. So the choke constrictions follow the 10 gauge choke constriction type of range. So we've got the factory modified in it today, which showed us some very nice results when we tested the modified out of the 1187 with these shells. So we'll see what the 835 with a modified choke can do, considering it's an overboard barrel. Generally, it really likes these little bit, I guess you call them different or oddball shells, these larger TSS shot and stuff. This 835 has tended to really like those shells, so we'll see what it can do with these TSS Ts. But as for today's test, I have everything set up the same as usual, as we would do it with like a buckshot test. I've got a big sheet of paper at 40 yards. I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity, and I've got the templates we can lay up over our target to see how they would have actually done in some more real life scenarios. So enough talking, let's head over here and see what kind of performance we can get from these triple threat TSS Ts through the 835 and modified choke. I expect to see a pretty nasty looking pattern as long as the overboard barrel plays nice with these shells. And I think that's really going to be the big question, is how is that combination of shell and overboard actually going to perform? So enough talking, let's head over here and take this shot and see what kind of results we get. Alright, so that shell gave us 1159 through the chrono. The boss claim is 1250, but this has been a very realistic and consistent velocity that we've seen out of these shells, is right at the 1150-ish mark. So there's definitely nothing weird to see up here as far as our velocity goes, and mid 1100s with a TSS T is still going to be packing a lot of energy down there at 40 yards. So looking perfectly fine up here as far as our velocity goes, but what kind of a pattern did they actually give us through that 835? Let's go check it out and see what we got. All right, now we're down here at our 40-yard target, and this is what we got. And I gotta say, that is nasty to say the least. Now, we were definitely a touch to the right and a little bit low, which I do believe was me, more so than the shell or the choke combo or anything like that. So we will adjust our templates accordingly, but that is definitely a very devastating and super impressive pattern. Everything is right there. Now, I did count as I was circling those pellets, and we had 46 pellets on the paper, and they gave us from the farthest 2 points across 18¼ inches. Now obviously we do have 1 or 2 up here at the top that are a little bit farther out, and 1 or 2 over on the left that are a touch farther out than the main area of our pattern. So realistically speaking, the main majority core area of your pattern is probably about 14 inches or so, which is very, very impressive. It really seems like a modified constriction is pretty well perfect for where these shells want to be at. I don't know that you can get these shells a whole lot better than that without over constricting them, which is definitely a possibility with this large of a TSS pellet. Either way, very impressive on the bare paper, but let's throw a couple templates up so we can really get an idea of how these actually performed. Alright, so here's our 10-inch circle, and if we line it up with where the rough core of our pattern actually is, we had right at 30 pellets inside that 10-inch circle. There's only 46 of them in the pattern down here. So you have almost 3/4 of your pellets within a 10-inch circle at 40 yards. That is absolutely devastating when it comes to TSS Ts. So yeah, that's going to crush anything that's inside of that 10-inch circle, that's for sure. But how does it actually look in some practical hunting scenarios? Let's start with the deer template and see what that one looks like. All right, here's our deer template, and TSS Ts are definitely more than capable at 40 yards to take a deer all day long. Some areas, they're not legal, others they are, but these are definitely capable of taking a deer, that's for sure. And as you can see, you would have absolutely crushed that deer. I guarantee you that he would have probably never took another step. I did move the template down to compensate for how low our actual pattern is, but we still have, I think, every pellet except for maybe one up at the top there that would have actually hit him. And with that kind of a condensed pattern, if you tuck it right tight into the back of the shoulder, the vast majority of your pellets are going right through the lungs and heart area. You're not going to have just pellets scattered all over the place on him. Everything is nice and condensed there, right where you would want it to be. So very nice and very devastating on a deer. But let's throw the hog template up for those of you hog hunters and those of you that would use these as a predator load, since that template is a little bit better sized to those type of animals as well. So let's throw that template up and see what that one looks like. All right, here's that hog template, and it's pretty well the same story. You would have absolutely crushed that hog all day long. These are TSS Ts, so you're carrying well into buckshot type of territory as far as energy goes. So if you would hunt something with buckshot, then these would also serve the same purpose. And clearly you got a pattern that's well capable of doing it. And for those of you predator hunters, a fox or a coyote are going to be a little bit smaller than this hog template, and you still have a very nice pattern for those guys as well. You could even varmint hunt with these, like raccoons, groundhogs, prairie dogs, that kind of stuff. That's a pattern you could reach out and touch them at 50, 60, maybe 70 yards as well. So very impressive, very devastating, and that's the kind of patterns I like to see, and really what I expected to see out of these shells as well. It just seems like these really do well in a modified choke constriction. So I don't think there's much more I can say about that. I think it kind of speaks for itself, because that's a performance that you can't really argue with, that's for sure. Okay, and here's the wad from that shell, and it really isn't anything super fancy or super different, but it definitely seems to do its job. As you can see, there's no major damage here. This one petal did open a little farther than the rest, but it didn't snag on anything. Of course, it is a flush choke with no porting, so it shouldn't snag on anything. There's nothing down in there except the little cork piece they use, so it really looks pretty much perfect compared to what we typically see out of these. Definitely nothing strange going on with it, and clearly, I think it did its job about as good as what you could ever ask it to do. So looking good here as far as our wad goes. All right, y'all. Well, what do you think about that result right there? That would be absolute devastation on whatever you would use it for. You could hunt varmints with it, like groundhogs or something. You could hunt predators, like fox or coyote or anything. You could step it up into pigs and deer territory and still absolutely hammer something out to 40 yards with it all day long. So definitely nothing short of impressive. And once again, it looks like Salt Creek has made a shell that is an absolute killer in performance. Coming into this, I figured we'd see a really nice pattern, but I didn't really know how it was going to do with the overboard barrel, but I don't think that's really too much of an issue here. It really seemed to perform well. But as always, leave your thoughts in the comments. Is that about what you expected? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Salt Creek triple threat shells? And if so, what kind of performance have you seen out of them? Would you hunt with a pattern like that or a shell like that? And if so, what would you actually take it out after? And what else might you want to see out of these shells? I've got one left. I was thinking about doing something like a penetration test at like 40 yards with it to see what kind of penetration and energy we have. So if that's something you want to see, then by all means let me know. Or if there's another setup or choke you might want to see it through, then let me know that down in the comments as well. But as for these results today, I think they speak for themselves. You cannot argue with that kind of a pattern. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys before the rain moves in, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.